also very important. Practically, all these initiatives failed. And we have a number of initiatives, from the Barcelona initiative to down to the neighborhood policy, through also almost initiative we never started, almost like the Union for the Mediterranean or other things like that. And that has been a continuous problem. But it is also true that we need some policy for the Mediterranean, and we need some common approach to conflictuality and economic cooperation, etc. Because the European Union is the major actor with all these countries, the major economic actor, and depending on its evolution, would also become the major political actor. But certainly is also a political actor. Unfortunately, the fragmentation of the Mediterranean is increasing. The war in Syria and in Iraq has immediate repercussions on Lebanon, on the Palestinians, on Sinai, on Libya, as well as on the Arab Peninsula. The war in Libya is also linked with other conflicts with all the Sahara region and the Horn of Africa. All the existing initiatives and dialogues we said are insufficient to deal with this situation. In fact, we found ourselves without a very clear policy and with the need of a new strategic thinking. We should reassess the situation. First of all, we should recognize, in my opinion, that we are confronting new kind of conflicts. We are not confronting war among states, but war inside states, war in a society. At stake are mostly the success of the failure of the states themselves. That is the situation in which we are living. The risk of failure is a very rapid growing fragmentation in which each community, religious group, ethnic group, tribe, etc., aim at an appearance of independence, and practically in which the states which have been formed in the Middle East, in Africa, in this period, will risk disappearing. The majority of them, not all maybe, but the majority of them. And this process, by the way, is also existing in Europe, and even if under greater control and with some hope of maintaining it at a lower level of risk. Borders risk being not only redrawn, but rediscussed in large, and we have already a proliferation of new sites and new people, I would say new mini sites and many people. They are trying to consult and redraw their maps. In this situation, the United States is less present than in the past in the area. The strategic doctrine of President Obama, if there is a doctrine, is of much less interventionist than in the past, which is maybe a good thing, but is also a bad thing at the same time, if it brings about a degree of disinterest of the United States from the area. The theory of leading from behind is nice as a formula, but means very little in practice. Russia is more present than in the recent past, but it has its own priorities, which have little to do with the Mediterranean, and more regaining some degree of global influence. And that, of course, its main fight is near abroad, if I can say, if I can use these terms. Europe is weakened by the economic crisis, is divided between those who are giving priority to the Eastern crisis and those who are giving priority to the Southern situation. And it is experiencing a relatively low level of solidarity among allies, among members. In this situation, in this area, in the Middle East, Mediterranean area, it seems to me that there are three actors which are growing in importance. And these are Turkey, Iran, and Saudi Arabia. There is a kind of confrontation among them. According to the principles of what was called the zero-sum game, in a sense that each one of them is thinking that anything which goes wrong for the other is a gain for him. It is not necessarily true, on the contrary, but that is the kind of approach which is followed, and the result is, of course, an increase in conflictuality and a decrease in the willingness to cooperate and a risk for stability. In this situation, other countries are positioning themselves. Probably the most interesting bloc, I'm not saying is the cooperation between Egypt and Saudi Arabia, which is interesting also because its interests are partly shared by also other countries, among them Israel on some sectors. By the way, some of these interests should be shared also by the Palestinians. But of course the Palestinians are in this moment divided mostly because of external influence and by the refusal of Israel to implement the two-state solution, which apparently is growing in this moment. I don't know if we'll reach in the clear definition, because by the way, we have to see also how the elections are going in Israel. But certainly, should the two-state solution become more credible, that could also help establishing a better cooperation with the Palestinians on stability. In Libya, there is for the moment no hope, in my opinion, for the mediation by the United Nations, or by Algeria, or by any other actor. I think that all the parties in this moment are choosing are choosing conflicts. All the parties are convinced that they can win, or they have a chance to win, and they want to prove it on the field practically. That they are not ready for negotiations. Things could change, however, but it will need, I think, two things. One, it should become clear who is the one who can be the winner. Second, who is more likely to become the winner. And second, it should be clear that the would-be winner is ready to accept a moderate victory. Possibly, in order to do that, I think an external action may be very important. But of course, that would mean that Europe, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, NATO should back one side. The neutrality of the UN approach is nice, but will not bring, in this moment, in this situation, any kind of agreement in my opinion. On this, I'm not necessarily perfectly in line with the position of my government, by the way. But I'm convinced of this. And this in some way applies also to the three-party confrontation we were speaking before. Let's say that in my opinion Iran is at the same time the main risk and the main opportunity of this situation. There's a main risk because the failure of the 5+1 negotiations would likely bring a war, higher distractions, crisis in the Gulf, and developments which are very difficult to predict in all the region, because I think we will open a kind of Pandora box of all the conflicts and things inside the region. But it's also an opportunity, because if on the contrary an agreement would be possible, and if that would start a more open disposition also of the Iranian leadership towards the rest of the Middle East, and not simply a conflictual approach, that could change the conflict patterns in Syria, in Iraq, in Lebanon, and Palestine, a little bit also in Libya, and in Africa. And so that could be an important game changer of the situation. And that is a situation which of course will not be easy. I don't think that Saudi and Iranians will become very friendly abruptly, but it's one of the situations in which the external world can help, and in particular Egypt will help. Turkey, unfortunately, for the moment seems completely unable to act constructively in this region. On the contrary, it's creating problems for NATO and for the European Union. Well, it may change, and we'll have to see what will happen. It will be already something if it doesn't act against. It seems to me that in this situation it's very difficult to speak of little details, tactics risk increasing the tactical approach, risk increasing the conflict in this situation. It should be necessary to speak of a strategy, a credible, clear, long-term strategy for the Mediterranean and the Middle East, to be implemented by the European Union, by NATO, and by at least some willing Arab countries. Should that be impossible, I think the Mediterranean will experience a growing fragmentation, a growing conflictuality, and with higher risks for us all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Vestri. I think it's we have just heard quite a very interesting intervention. And there are a lot of points that need to be rather elaborated or discussed in our discussions. But I think the main idea that I got from his intervention, that he is just shedding lights on the future of the region in terms of ascending and descending roles of different powers and countries. And I think this is a subject that we need to discuss, because we are approaching a kind of new era where we could see an exchange of roles, and the EU will have and should have a special role in this future. Thank you very much. Now I'd like to just give the floor to our friend, Ambassador, one who retired. We're all retired. Don't remind us. Ambassador Dr. Harold Kinderman is the Secretary General of the German Council on Foreign Relations, Germany's network for foreign policy TV. Ambassador Kinderman joined the DGAP in September 2014 after concluding a professional career in both diplomacy and academia. He studied law in Erlangen, Marburg, and Cologne. He obtained his PhD at the University of. Well, I'm sorry, I should give him what you are. And just a word that the GGEP is an independent, non-partisan, and non-profit membership organization, think tank, and publisher that has been promoting public aid and foreign policy in Germany for 6 years. This is the institute that the ambassador presides over. Sorry, Council of Foreign Affairs. I think we enjoy even more of your intervention. Please.
Thank you. Well, what has happened to us, in our view, that were two crises which we had not foreseen. The first was Syria. Syria in Germany is a very stable country. The old Assad and even the young Assad even better. My doctor in London, married to a British girl. It seems to be a stable country. Then we had very good relations to Russia, balanced relations working a long time. And then happened Ukraine, which nobody had foreseen, and we had Crimea. And in the end, the actual discussion in Germany is about this, that if you have not foreseen two major events in your neighborhood, your alarming system is not working. And this is our state that we are now looking on. Our alarming system was not working. And now we try to adjust our alarming system. And this is quite a challenge. Definitely this is quite a challenge. And from this point of view, we look to the world. And then we decide between countries which are a risk for stability and countries which provide stability. And as we have seen, there is two major crises which are not over. We have, you see, the Islamic State. Nobody had the idea that the Islamic State would happen. I was ambassador to Saudi Arabia for years, and the old saying was always the same: the Saudi Wahhabism is the most radical form of Islam. And now we have the Islamic State. It's very different. And therefore a lot has happened, and now we try to adjust. And what to do? We decide between countries which are providing stabilities and countries which are a threat to stability. This is the main issue. Not so much the programs we have, in my personal view, not so much the ideas we have, and we have to guide the EU through all these conflicts. Now we realize that the EU has problems at its borders, serious problems, and all these problems of enlargement and problems, yes, it is important. But first, in the German idea, and the foreign ministers very close to this, they mentioned last in the speech, is to readjust our alarm system. And when it came to this fact, we looked to different countries, and then the record of Egypt is a very clear one. Egypt is providing stability. This is for the major point. Egypt is providing stability. And simply by the fact that Egypt is providing stability, Egypt is an important partner for us, because this is in our criteria, providing stability and not giving more and putting more risk on the table. And I was ambassador to Israel for a long time, nearly 6 years, and in Israel I had a very interesting experience. That Egypt is playing an important role in the relations between Israel and the Palestinians. The Palestinians is known to everybody. It's also known to everybody that Germany is close to Israel. On the other hand, it's known to everybody that we have good relations to the Palestinians and that we recognize the right of our own state, and we try to help. It's a more than delicate issue, and unfortunately it becomes more and more difficult by special reasons, which I don't want to elaborate now. In this situation, or when I had discussions with my friends of the Secret Service in Israel and persons related to them, they always were praising Egypt, always praising Egypt, and I asked them why. They said to me, it's not a political point. Of course, Egypt for us is important as broker, Egypt is always trying to moderate the situation and to be in a place to discuss even new ideas. Therefore, Egypt is a crucial point for resolving the crisis in the Middle East. But more, if we look to the Sinai, which is extremely important for us, never the Egyptians allow terrorists to cross the Sinai. And this is an important point. And therefore, in Tel Aviv, I was really surprised to find in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem so many people highlighting Egypt. The simple fact, a reliable partner which is serious, which has good intentions, and most important is fighting terror. It's not allowing terror. It's not allowing to use the Sinai to attack Israel by terrorists. And this, of course, is an impact for us because we listen to these voices. And therefore, if we look to the region, we differentiate more between providing stability and danger stability. And if you make this, when it comes to Egypt, I repeat it again, it's very clear, this country is providing stability, and therefore for us, it's a desired and most partner.
Thank you very much. Point here that we're talking about Egypt as a source or a center of stability, not in terms of slogans rather than of realities. Thank you very much. Now, نأتي لمسك الختام. I don't know how that would be interpreted in English. مسك الختام. Isn't this we'd like to just to introduce our dear friend and distinguished ambassador Gamal Bayroumi, and I have before me just some points of his very long career. Is أمين عام المشاركة المصرية الأوروبية بوزارة التعاون الدولي، أمين عام اتحاد المستثمرين العرب، مساعد وزير خارجية مصر الأسبق، عضو هيئة المحكمة العليا للقيم، درس الاقتصاد والسياسية في جامعة الإسكندرية، دبلوم معهد الدراسات الاستراتيجية وزمالة كلية الدفاع الوطني. انضم للسلك الدبلوماسي عام 61، شارك في مفاوضات مصر مع أكثر من 70 دولة ومنظمة. خليني عمل في بعثات مصر في رومانيا والبرازيل وألمانيا الاتحادية والكاميرون. قاد مفاوضات مصر مع الاتحاد الأوروبي في اتفاق المشاركة، وتستفيد الدول العربية والأجنبية بخبراته ليحاضر في الجامعات ومراكز البحوث في مصر والدول العربية وأوروبا. تفضل.
شكرا. ودايما لما بسعد بصحبتك دايما لك مبادرات طيبه. ورؤوف سعد، السفير رؤوف سعد اطول سفير زملنا طول فتره التفاوض، وبقول بكل تجرد انه من افضل السفراء الذين عايشتهم في تلك الفتره في موقع. انما هو يحب يسعد يبقى يعني كرييتيف، فخلى المعاقب يتكلم قبل المتحدث عشان انا ما اتكلمش كتير يعني. على كل حال سياده الرئيس، انا مش هاخد وقت الا لغايه ما تقول لي اسكت، لان المعتاد اللي انا بقوله دلوقتي بيتقال في جامعه القاهره في 42 ساعه. فونيفر يقول يعني سكتني. الموضوع اللي بنتكلم فيه موضوع عزيز على قلبي جدا، لان الموضوع خد شكل شخصي، خد مجموعه من خيره رجال مصر تفاوضوا. دايما بقول ان احنا 278 عضو في هذا الفريق التفاوضي. الميزه فيه ان احنا ثبتنا فريق التفاوض بقرار من رئيس الوزراء ان الذين يتفاوضون طيل ال7 سنوات لم يتغيروا، حتى الذين احيلوا على المعاش استمروا معنا مع اللي خلفهم في المنصه. لكن رغم تثبيت فريق التفاوض غيرنا 4 رؤساء وزارات في اثناء التفاوض، غيرنا 3 وزراء تجاره، 3 وزراء صناعه، و4 وزراء ماليه. فنتيجه تثبيت فريق التفاوض اعتقد ان دي انتجت قصه نجاح صغير. لازم منوه الى اننا لم اكن اول من بدا المفاوضات، وانما بدا السيد السفير سعد الفرنجي في 4 جولات شاركت في الرابعه، ثم بدات انطلق بالطريقه. بسرعه وانا محضر ورقتين لمن يحب، ورقه اساسيه عن الوضع الاوروبي وورقه اخرى عن رؤيه لمستقبل العلاقات الاوروبيه المتوسطيه ومصر في ظلها طبعا. بقول ان احنا وقفنا في محطه سنه 1976 عند عقد اول اتفاق للتعاون الشامل بين مصر والاتحاد الاوروبي لما كان الاتحاد الاوروبي 9، ثم في 2001 من 95 ل 2001 بنتفاوض و2004 بنصدق. ويذكر ان الدرافت الاول الانيشال بتاع الاتفاقيه وقعها السفير رؤوف سعد. ومش هنسالك انه قبل ما يوقع طلبني ليستاذن انه شايف ان كان لازم انا اروح اوقع، بين الحقيقه انا اللي رفضت التوقيع لان الدرافت اللي وقعه رؤوف سعد كان فيه اخطاء كثيره وما كنتش عاوز اخطا لا يغلطها. الاوروبيين ضحكوا علينا وحطوا نص فيه لوب هولز زي ما بيقولوا في الاعفاءات الحقوقيه تحديدا. فعندما كلفني الوزير ان اذهب للتوقيع قلت له ارجوك ما تخلينيش انا اوقع، فوقع فيها رؤوف سعد. لكن مش هنساله ان الادب والبروفيشناليزم بتاع هذا الممثل انه يطلب لي انت صحيح مش جاي تقعد. قلت له على بركه الله كل من يمثل مصر على راسنا من فوق. انما طبعا انا عوقبت بعدين انني لم احضر التوقيع النهائي لا انا ولا ال 278 مفاوض لسبب انا قالوا لي لا. وبالتالي عاوزين نعمل لسته للذين قاموا بهذا العمل. الاتفاق اللي وقع بالاحرف الاولى 2004 وقع للاسف في 2001 في يناير، وقع نهائي في يونيو، وظل 3 سنوات على بال ما 17 برلمان يوقع عليه، 15 برلمان اوروبي والبرلمان الاوروبي ثم البرلمان المصري. في طفره جديده في العلاقات جرت عندما دخلنا في سياسه الجوار، واعتبارا من 2007 اصدر مجلس المشكل المصري الاوروبي على مستوى وزاره الخارجيه ورقه جديده في ما يتعلق بسياسه الجوار. لما نقيم الاتفاق ده نشوف هو يقوم على ايه؟ يقوم على حوار سياسي، حوار اقتصادي ومالي واتفاق تجاري، ثم حوار ثقافي واجتماعي. من ساعه ما وقع الاتفاق ودخل حيز النفاذ في 2004 اوروبا اللي وقعنا معها كانت 15، انضم لها 10 في بعد كده ثم 2 ثم 1، اوروبا الان بقت 28. ومن الناحيه القانونيه طبعا في كل مره دول تنضم للاتحاد الاوروبي بنوقع معها اتفاق موائمه حتى يسري عليها وعلينا ما يسري فيه هذا الاتفاق. فانا اصبحت شريك ل 28 دوله اوروبيه. في هذه الفتره والى الان في ملف التجاره حصلت طفره قويه تكاد تكون الصادرات المصريه تضاعفت 4 مرات. 2002 كنا بنحقق 2 مليار صادرات، 3 مليار صادرات اسف، وصلنا في 2011 الى 13 مليار صادرات، تراجعنا في 12 13 شويه لكن ما زلنا عند مستوى جيد. الاستثمار قفز في 2003 كان 246 مليون دولار، ارتفع في 2010 الى 1529 مليون دولار، من 200 الى 1500. المساعدات الاوروبيه من فتره ما بدينا يعني تقريبا من 96 حتى 2013 بلغت 2286 مليون دولار. اذا انا راضي عن الشق الاوسط، البلد الوسطى اللي هي التجاره والمال وما ماشيه مش بطال. بالتاكيد طموحنا يستدعي ان احنا نطلب اكثر وتعميق العلاقات الاقتصاديه والتجاريه. لكن عندي